I'm so happy and excited to tell you about our official sponsors of the full season of She Loves Herself, the podcast, the grief season. Oh my goodness, this partnership could not be more aligned if I tried. What I love about this brand and the people behind it is not only that the product is absolutely incredible, but the two people behind it are very, very special people. Their core values and what their mission is in this lifetime on earth is to serve and support people with their natural health and their natural healing. Let me tell you about Becky and Nathan Bowles. They are an incredible couple. They have 4 children, and Becky has a background in science, and for the past 9 years they have been official distributors for doTerra Essential Oils here in the UK. So I am a huge fan of essential oils, and I have been for many, many years, but I've never found one brand that has ticked every box for me. So many essential oils smell amazing, but the smell goes away. I don't really always feel the full benefits of what I believe I should. There's quite a bit added, some things taken away, some things diluted. And that's what makes doTerra Essential Oils completely different from any other ones that I've used before. 100% essential oils. They're pure, powerful and potent essential oils with nothing added and nothing taken away. I cannot recommend this brand enough because not only does it support natural healing, it's products that I can use on my children, my pet, dog. It supports our emotional health, our physical health, my spiritual health. And there are so many benefits to a really good quality of essential oil. And I'm so glad that Becky and Nathan and I have connected, and we feel that this is just a great product to really support you all on your journey. So the exciting news with this is, because you are a She Loves Herself podcast listener, you get 25% discount. So I am going to drop the link in the show notes. All you need to do is click on the link and it will take you to a page just for our podcast listeners, and you will get 25% off your essential oils. This is quality products. I love them. I notice a difference as soon as I use them, so I cannot recommend them enough. Or you can visit the website www.botanistkitchen.co.uk, but make sure that you go over to the podcast page to get your 25% discount. Please let me know how you get on, because I know that you are going to love them just as much as me. Welcome to She Loves Herself, Navigating Grief Season, Ann Merrilees.
Good morning.
Hello.
So honoured to be here, Jill, honestly.
Oh, I'm just really happy that you're here. So for anyone watching or listening, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Ann and I together. But if you're just listening, Ann Merrilees is just such an incredible human being. We connected, well, actually we didn't properly meet face to face until March, when I was running a retreat with Lynette, and then I got to see you face to face. But we'd spoken on the phone and we knew of each other for a while before that. And we've done some work together and we just connected, and it's just so lovely to have you on here, because I've got to know you pretty well over this kind of last year almost, I would say. And when I shared with Ann, because Ann and I still do some work together, when I shared with Ann what I was doing with this podcast, Ann had shared with me before that, in summertime, Ann, you'd shared with me that you had this desire to support people in grief. And I said to you, do you remember I said to you, I'll probably be your first client. Do you remember? Because I was obviously going through quite a lot with my mum at the time, and I knew that her death was imminent. I didn't know it was going to be like within weeks or months, but I knew that that was the trajectory for her.
And what you shared, we were on a call together, and we were in a group call with a beautiful community that we're in, and you shared something with the group, and I'll never forget it, Anne, and it really moved me to tears, and it moved everyone in that group, and it was in Empowered Women that you shared it. And I honestly had goosebumps. And after that, I think I messaged you and I was like, wow, you just spoke from your heart about your passion to support people in the grief space. And you shared with us what you've been through with grief. There was like, you could literally, everyone listening to this, when Anne shared it, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone just went, you took us with you on that journey when you spoke from your heart that way. And I said, when my mum did pass and I decided to put this grief season together to support people, you were top of my list. You were like, I need to get her on, because we can speak to experts in grief and all of this stuff, Anne, but the way you spoke, it touched me. And I know that, when people listen to you, they're going to feel the same. And I know that you're going to go on to help so many people in this space. So thank you for coming on.
You're so welcome.
There's your intro. She's like, oh, thanks. No pressure, Anne.
No pressure.
Right, that's it. Podcast episode finished. Well done. Thanks.
You need to put your parent advisory on as well.
Oh, I know, but that's okay. There's some words, and actually you might hear the dog barking, because whenever someone walks by, or a cat, it goes absolutely wild. But everyone that listens to this podcast, will sometimes hear sweary words and dogs barking, and it's all welcome because it's real life.
Exactly.
So Anne, thank you again for being here. I want to talk about grief, right? Because that's why we're here. For the listeners and the people watching, tell us about your journey with grief.
Goodness. I guess 2011 it really started. I'd lost grandparents and things as I was growing up, so there was that element of losing grandfathers, grandmas, things like that, and that was sort of the ebb and flow of life, right? It was just that's what happened when people got older and stuff. But 2011 was where the real grief started, I guess. That I lost my 16-year-old niece in a shooting accident. So that kind of, the trauma that ensued after that, there was so much that went on around that time. There was press, there was people wanting to blow up this big story. It was all over the newspapers. You picked up the newspaper and there was our face. It was just like this huge thing outside of our family. And then there was the real life stuff that you were going through, and accepting the loss of such a young person, and through horrific circumstances as well, and yeah, so but at that time I was single. I was sharing a house with somebody that I didn't know very well, so I had my time around my family. This is kind of just a brief kind of story of it. So I had my time with my family, but then when I wasn't with my family, I just lived life as normal. I took a little bit of time off work, and then thought I had to get back to normal as quickly as possible. That's what was gonna get me through, and things like that. So still out with friends, went away every weekend, just. And I think 11 years ago, I definitely not done any work on myself, any personal development at all. So I was just kind of coping with the tools I didn't have even. I'd never navigated. None of us had ever navigated something like that before.
So big.
Huge, right? Massive. And also there was an element of supporting her friends. I knew a few of her really good friends, and it's there was trolls online about it and things like that. So it was supporting her friends when all of this kicked off online, you know, like trying to keep them in their path and not look at that and things like that. So it was just like, you just don't have the tools to deal with that. So you just roll with it. And you know, and time moves, and it's something that I think everybody will say. It's like, as much as you pray and hope, time will not stop for you. Like, it will not stop. There's days where you're just like, just stop, like, just for even 10 minutes to let me catch up, you know. And it's like, life just goes on, life moves, your people, your friends, everything moves and shifts around you, and you just get caught up on that, well, let's get back to normal thing. So that's kind of what we did. And, you know, just supported my brother and my sister-in-law and my nephew, who was a couple of years older than Sophie, you know. So it was just like making sure that you were around and things like that. And then in 2020, so like 9 years later, I then got the phone call from my brother to say that we had lost my nephew in an accident at work. So same family, brother and sister, you know, lost 9 years apart. And like, I can't even, 2 years on, I find it harder to describe that moment than I would have done like 3 days after it happened. Like, it just doesn't explode, it implodes. Like, your world just collapses, because there's one big lie that you get told your whole life, that lightning doesn't strike twice. And we kind of carried on, healed to an extent, and life moved on. And I saw like David and Katie, my brother and sister-in-law, like starting to move into their life, starting to enjoy themselves a little more. David, my nephew, had met somebody that had a baby, they were due to get married. Life was really good, and I was comfortable in the fact that was all going to happen. Like, you know, nothing was going to happen to him because
it's
lightning
already happened. And the worst thing, right?
How could it? How could
it, as parents, two parents lose both their children?
Yeah. You know, and just utter, that, like, there's only one word I ever use for it, and it's utter devastation, like, that ensues after that. But, you know, there's light, and there's laughter, and there's inspiration, and everything that gets pulled out of that time as well. And quickly, you know, it's like, within that horrific situation, and we had his little boy, who was just coming up to a year old at the time, who was just like the light of life. You know, he's so clever and funny, and he was just like this loving, beautiful little boy. And thank God for him, you know, thank everything for him. So there was a lot of light there in it, because he brought it, like, you know, and we kind of concentrated on him and things like that. But obviously the devastation is real, but there's a lot more that comes out of it than.
For sure. Oh wow. I mean, just even like peeling that back, to lose a child in a shooting accident, and then 9 years later lose your other child in another accident.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, right, we do say, what the fuck is going on? What the fuck did I do? What did I do in a past life to deserve this shit? Right?
Yeah.
Did that ever go through like your mind? You know, obviously, and I don't know with your brother, and his journey is personal to him, but for your journey, Anne, did anything like that ever cross your mind?
It hugely. It's funny, the what the fuck. Like, I remember after taking the call, that's all I could say. Like, I wandered round the house gathering stuff to go. I didn't know where at the time. And it was like, it was all I could say was, because what else can you say? Like, you're calling like somebody to explain, for something to land on you and go, this is why this happened.
Yeah.
Again, you know.
What's the answers? What's the answers, you know?
Yeah. And you know, I'm very much of the, and I have evidence of it all around me. What you think about, you bring about. What you think about most of the time will appear in your life.
Yeah.
So there was this whap on me, like, what have you created? Like, what has been going on in his universe that has brought this around? And it wasn't till I spoke to my business mentor at the time, actually, she was like, Anne, like, you've got to let that go, because accidents happen, like, shit happens. This wasn't, and also that's not my journey, that was David, my nephew's journey. Totally separate, but I absolutely went there and tore myself apart.
Yeah.
Like, going, who, also, if it's not me, who was
Yeah, we want an answer. We need, it's like the mind goes, but I need that explained to me. I need someone to explain it. I need to have a reason. My sister used to always say that to me, Jill, you always need a reason for something. You know, sometimes there's just not. But I used to always be like, no, I need to know the reason for that. And to be honest, I can still fall into that, Anne.
Yeah.
And even in the, now I'm more sort of spiritual, I will go, right, what's the spiritual reason for this? And actually, I like to have that. Things are clear when I understand. And so it's different, very different for me. And I think it is for you, and I'm going to ask you about it. It's different for me now in the sense that when you mentioned that was his journey, it wasn't yours. And this might feel weird for people to hear, but Anne and I have had these conversations before. And you know, anyone that listens to the podcast, I do sort of go quite spiritual at points, but when it comes to death, I've really learned a lot. And we often think, what did I do to deserve this? And it is really important to understand. And I believe, and again, it's not for everyone, but please have an open mind and heart when you're listening to these episodes. I do feel like, you know, soul contracts are made before they enter the human, or they pick the human who they're going to go to, and that's going to be their home for however long. I do believe soul contracts are made. That doesn't make it easier to go, oh, well, a soul contract was made, I'll just accept that then, you know. I don't know why some deaths are, you know, people fall asleep and it's, you know, they get to 90 and they fall asleep and they pass away and it's very beautiful and expected, or why certain people have horrific experiences in deaths. I don't know the answers to that. But I think where we are in our heads a lot and we're trying to get answers, it really does keep us stuck. It really keeps us stuck in the space of our need to have an answer, our need to get to the guts of stuff that's never going to bring them back. What's your experience or thoughts around that, Anne?
Quite similar, like the soul contract, I think that's not words that I would use, but I remember sometime after Sophie passed, and I remember thinking at the time, and one of her friends said something really interesting as well. We're going to try and like get this in a thread that actually makes sense. Like just shortly for my own thoughts, just shortly after Sophie passed, so very much in the thick of it, I remember thinking, I could never imagine Sophie as an adult. So although she was like going through her exams, and she wanted to go into social work, she had worked with children on a placement, and she was a massive advocate of the underdog. Like she would have been incredible in that role and worked herself to the bone. But like, you know, that's easy for me to say now, but it's like at the time I remember thinking I could never ever imagine Sophie beyond where she was. Like so I could never see her in the future. And I remember like being conscious of that, like before.
You just couldn't visualize it.
No, I couldn't see her there. And I think that maybe that soul contract that you speak about is like is like a thing, and it is something that not exudes from them, but is present in them. Because, and the only reason I'm saying that, and again, please, your listeners, keep an open mind, and
this is your experience, right?
God help me if my brother ever listens to this.
Oh, I know, don't. I say stuff and I think, sometimes my family are like, what are you on about?
She had been down to see one of her friends with her mum and her friend's mum was friends. And her and Alex started laughing about something that they didn't know why they were laughing. They just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed, and they just couldn't stop. And it was just this weird thing. And like Alex was like, I don't know why we were laughing. We just did, And it was like, and then when we lost her, she was like, that's why. That was the last time I was going to see her. That came about. And I remember the Christmas, so this happened in April, and the Christmas before she died, I got this door hang that said, always my auntie, forever my friend. Now, that would have, at that point, I would have just been like, oh, that's really nice, but it hit me like, it proper, like, landed in me. And I remember just like squeezing her, squeezing her, like that was beautiful, and it still hangs wherever I live. Move around, wherever I live, it hangs. And and it's just like these things. There was others as well that it's like, it was almost like we were coming to her time. And unfortunately, somebody else took her time. Like, it wasn't under her control, and it was an accident and all the rest of it. But it was like that was
her time.
That was her time.
Oh my goodness, I really feel the emotions from that, what you just shared. And thank you for sharing, because I think sometimes when we reflect, it's like, of course she didn't know, but there was just something that these things come in. Because we get so caught up, right, as human beings in the human form, and I get it, because we're human, right? So we do, but we never really often, that's a generalization, but so many of us don't think that there is something else out with the human form. We just get caught up in our day-to-day, and we don't really open our eyes beyond the physical. And there is so much more. I truly believe there is so much more. And if we open our hearts and minds to spirit, to energy, well, we're seeing now, it's not even like, 5 years ago when I started on my journey, and I didn't know anyone doing what I was doing. I didn't, until I sort of met Lynette, and then I met another Ali and other people that opened me up and to this different way of being, rather than just this human way of being. And now I really feel that, even though, for me, when I miss my mum, and there's not a day that I have not cried. Even yesterday, I heard a song, that was me gone. Day before, read something out, cried again. And it doesn't leave you, but I truly feel comforted that I've opened my heart and mind and spirit to more than just the human form, and believing that actually the soul, the spirit, it never really dies. And actually, I just feel like if we can open up to that more, there is more comfort in that for so many people, if we allow it to be.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think I've always been in a way spiritual. I think I would never have labelled myself that, when I was a lot younger. But I've always believed that there was something else, and very open to things happening. Like, I never, I don't believe in coincidences and like, oh, how did that just happen? It's like, well, because somebody just did that, And I remember going for a spiritual reading just after Sophie died, actually, and no, almost a year after, actually. And it was somebody that I didn't know. She didn't know me, but she came highly recommended, and love a good spooky wifey. And you know, she lives away out in the sticks.
Me
and all that.
too.
Yeah. And I remember like her reading was absolutely pap on. Like she was just spot on. And also like something that she rounded up her reading with happened 4 years later. And it wasn't until that happened, and it was an accident my dad had, and it wasn't until I was wheeling him out of the hospital after a back operation. He threw himself down a hill not long before we got married, so it was like, thanks, Dad. So I was wheeling him out, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is what she said. She was like, somebody was going to be in a wheelchair, but not to worry, it was going to be okay. And it was only because he couldn't walk that far to get out that we had to wheel him out in a wheelchair. And I was just like, oh my God. So like I totally, like, that kind of solidified a belief in me, because I was like, there's definitely, and my grandparents, yeah, and my grandparents were there, you know, and my granddad on my mum's side was like, he didn't believe in stuff like that. And she's like, he's like, I never thought this was possible. Like I'm here. And my grandma was saying Neil and I had not long got together, and she was holding her hands like this, saying that we were stronger like this together rather than apart, stuff. And I was just like, that was also not really something that she would say, but I could imagine that that would be something that, you know, if she had the opportunity or the voice to say it, she would. So that kind of solidified that. So then, and other things that she's done in massive groups, Sophie comes through. Like she pushes other people's people out the way to talk to me.
Yes, because when we've chatted, you're like, Sophie said you have to shut up.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, it's just here, and she was described as like she just whirlwinds in.
Whirlwinds in.
Yeah,
and I want to touch on that, Anne, because you and I have spoken about this before, and because you are so open and you're that open channel to it, you do connect. You feel Sophie around you. So just talk to us about that then, how she comes in. You said like that whirlwind and she comes in.
Yeah, and I think I remember not long after we lost her, I remember being downstairs in the house, and I've got that big IKEA chest of drawers, and they make a very distinct dunk when they close. And I was downstairs one night, and all I heard was my drawer being opened and rolled and dunked shut. I was like, oh, what? And I was like, is that you? Because I was in the house by myself. So like, I don't like spooks. Like I have a very vivid imagination. And it's just like, was that you? And it was almost like I could hear her fun, feel her fun there, as if to say, I am here, you know, like, don't not think that I'm it, because I am, you know. And then my headphones, I would be quite happily listening away at my headphones, and then the volume would just go straight up and almost like blow my eardrums out, you know, and I'd be like, stop that. But I could like feel, it's more like you can feel that fun aspect, and she's just reminding you that you're there. And I remember we were over, David and Kay have got an apartment over in La Playa, sort of the east coast of Spain, and it's amazing. And we were over, Neil and I had our own apartment, Sophie's best friend and her family had another apartment, and Katie and my mum had another one, so it was like there's loads of us all out together. And we were talking the next day, and I was like, when we went to bed, the blinking TV switched back on. And they were like, the girls, whatever, what time was that at? And I was like, oh, it'd be about midnight. And they looked at each other and were like, no way, because they were just falling asleep. And Kelly almost like jumped out of bed because all she heard was Sophie shouting, Kelly! And she just like leapt out of bed. And this was at the same time as our telly flicked back on after we'd went to bed. So I'm like, you know, not everybody's going to like take that on board, but it's, and I feel her spirit there. And you know, she's not here all of the time, but like I can call on her, and like she will be there. And if I don't feel her, like I'm quite happy that she's sitting beside her mum, or she's in the kennels with the dogs, because that's generally where you would find her. Like she would come home from school and choose her favorite dog for the night, and she would go out and get them from the kennel, and that would be her favorite for the day. And David is very much strong, like right on my left-hand side. Like I can just feel him like a rock, just right there the whole time. Doesn't say much, but it just lets me know that he's there. Like, and I know, and it's almost like if I turned my head fast enough, I would see his essence. Like it's almost like that. I could sometimes like, and I tried it, and I feel a little bit mental for doing it, but like there was sometimes like walking down the street, like I would just feel her there, and I would flick round really fast because I felt like I could see her. If I turned fast enough, she would be there. And it's like, and yes, it's like, oh, you know, and I can hear my brother and my mum sometimes. You're just winding yourself up, you know, you're just like keeping that emotions alive and stuff, and it's like, it's not that at all.
It's not, it's just
Not
it's
that at all.
annoying. But actually, when you said keeping those emotions alive, I want to talk to you about that, right? Because in general, with grief, people don't keep it alive. Like, you know, I was thinking, and I said this, I was interviewing someone yesterday, and I said, you know, who tells your story? You know, a lot of the time we don't talk about grief. We don't really talk about the person that's dead. And if we do, we're like, right, I've said enough now. I mentioned that, and that was a bit uncomfortable. So I won't mention that again for another 6 months. And I wanted to bring up the subject of the person, but you know, it was a bit uncomfortable, and I didn't want to upset the person. And I thought, oh my gosh, like if I died, I wouldn't want to be forgotten. You know, who tells your story when you're gone? Why don't we take them with us? It's so uncomfortable for people though, isn't it?
Yeah, hugely. Yeah. I remember in that reading, that first one I had, she said that initially Sophie couldn't believe that she was there, like in the after, like she couldn't believe that she'd left, that she'd had to leave. But she totally accepted it now, but she didn't want to not be spoken about.
That's why she's always coming round. She's like, remember me? Keep me
Yeah,
alive.
exactly.
That's it. Do you know what, Anne? Because when you stop talking about them, then they're really gone.
Yeah, and that's not okay, and it's okay, and it's okay for you to still believe that they're here, like that physical being, that person you could wrap your arms around, that person you could have a conversation with. Yes, they're physically not here, but like they're still around you, and that's okay.
Oh gosh,
that's okay. Like, and they're not, they didn't create the chaos in their lives for you to just stop talking about them. And I know. And I say chaos, like, because I intend to create enough chaos in the world that people are going to be like, holy shit.
I know. Remember Anne?
Yeah.
And actually not like, I just think they're not here in the physical, like you said, they're not here in the physical, but why can't we take them with us? And people might say, oh, it's not healthy. Do you know what? It's not healthy if, you know, you never get out your bed for years and years, and you're just like in the mire. You know, you've got to live, and that person who's gone would want you to live, but why not live and take them with you?
Yeah.
And, you know, tell their story and talk about them and keep their spirit alive, because there's a whole world of spirit. You know, again, people are listening probably going, oh, she's nuts, what are they all about? Fine, but that's what we believe, right? And it actually is so great and comforting to believe that there is spirit. And do you know what else, Anne? What I love about that is, so my mum, I dream about my mum. I haven't actually seen her like in this space, like, you know how some people can see spirit? I haven't, and I'll tell you a bit about that, because years ago I think I scared them away. I think I did see something once about 4 or 5 years ago, and then I absolutely freaked out to the point that I think they thought I'm never coming back to her. Like I was like, never come to me again. I was so scared. It was on my journey at the beginning. I was like, phoned my coach. I'm like, Laura, like a bit haunted or something. Anyway, so but I keep saying that I'm ready if you want to come. But anyway, they don't.
They're busy flicking you,
but they don't. But what I do is I see my mum in my dreams, and she's not sick. You know, she has no cancer. She walks, she was in a wheelchair at the end, and she's not all like thin and skinny, and she can, like, she's just happy and she's glowing and she's at her healthiest. Because when we pass away, when someone dies, they don't carry any of the ailments that has happened in the human physical form. Spirit doesn't take it. It's in peace. So, you know, it's so comforting to think, God, they don't have any of that with them now.
Yeah, thank God.
I know.
Yeah.
So I don't get what, you know, I don't get it so much. You get it really strong. I love that. And I think it's, people will say, I don't get what Ann got and I don't get what Jill gets, but what could you get? And are you open?
Yeah.
Are you open to receiving it and asking for signs, like, you know, those little signs? And if we ask and we're open enough, we do get it.
Yeah. And I think, like, people sometimes, and I'm generalizing here, often actually I get the sense from people that that's not how they actually think. That's a story and a belief that's a load of, like, don't believe in that, it's witchy, it's this, it's that, and you know, it's not socially acceptable to believe in that.
Weirdos.
I would rather live in my world than that world. Thank you very
closed
much.
off. Well, me too, Anne.
And it's like, if they, you know, and I've said, it's like, if you just get really quiet with yourself, just away, there's nobody going to bother you, put your phone away, just sit really quiet, start the conversation. Ask them a question. Because, like, we don't know what happened with David. It was like somebody picked up him and his quad bike and turned him upside down. It was the most benign fatal accident scene the guy had ever seen. Couldn't understand what happened. It was like somebody just flipped him and his ton quad bike upside down. And, like, I hate a mystery. And that mystery, like, drove my dad and my brother insane, because, like, they ride quad bikes every day. Like, they couldn't understand what happened, or often anyway. You know, and like, my dad came up with a theory that seemed quite plausible, and I was like, I can't be doing with that. And, like, there's more to come. But I asked David, like, I asked him, like, what the fuck happened? He's like, I messed up.
Oh, I remember you sharing this on the call with us. Oh my God, I feel it again. Are you happy to share that with us? Like, what happened?
Yeah, so, well, we don't know what happened, really. He went quiet. David's never quiet. He's always on Snapchat, inappropriate stuff, like, talk about spirited children. Like, you know, Sophie left her mark in the 16 years she was there, and David seemed to know everybody, and they knew far too much about him. Let's just say that. And he went quiet on his phone, like, nobody could get hold of him, and that's alarm bells if you can't get hold of young David Taylor, or wee Dave, as everybody called him. And his fiance was like, there's something not right here, because it had been pouring with rain, and he doesn't like to get his balls wet on the quad bike when it's raining. So she was like, I don't know. Sorry, everybody.
No, I don't apologise.
You know, and so she went out to look for him and found him just like half a mile from the house, upside down, the quad bike on top of him, upside down. And it was like, there was no tire marks. There was, you know, to say that he was going too fast or he tipped off the bank or anything. The only thing that was really out of place when they lifted his bike was the fact that all the grass seed and heather seed out of his box on the front of his bike was lying on the road. That was pretty much like one of the only things that was out of place, you know. So there was just, and the fatal accident inquiry is like done and it's finished, and it has been you know, stamped off as just an unexplained accident, but obviously died of the injuries he sustained under the bike, because they're really heavy, you know. And like I say, like, we all of us tailors are very practical people. We have to solve the mystery, you know. It's like, and like I said, you know, Dad and David, like, there's lots of Davids, by the way, if I'm confusing everybody. There's a whole line of them, and you know, it really stumped them. But like I said, I just asked them, and he fucked up. I don't know how. Like, I would like to be able to get to the bottom of that and share it. You know, but probably what my dad has come up with was probably close to the truth. But you know, and I'll keep asking the question. But like I take great peace from that, like the fact that I can just tap it. I don't talk to him all the time and stuff, but like they come through, like on my one-to-one with you the other week and stuff, they come through and he calls out bullshit. Like, oh, both of them do, you know, and that's the way they were. They were strong characters. Sophie could defend herself, you know, in an adult world, like not physically, but verbally, like, my goodness, smart. You know, she worked in a pub part-time and, you know, was like super quick humored and stuff like that. You know,
bit like yourself, Anne.
A bit like the same.
Bit like yourself.
Like Anne, yeah. And you know, and like I take great peace that I've still got that around me. Like, and that's what I'm saying. It's like they're so spirited. Take their spirit with you. Like, you know, and some family members to other people might, you know, have been quiet and more withdrawn and all the rest of it. But take their quietness with you. Like, that's a gift to you. Like, how you knew them is like how you can take yourself, you know, take a piece of them. Go, I like that peaceful soul that never got wound up about anything and all the rest of it. Take that part of them. When young Master D here calls me out for my bullshit, then maybe I need to do that more often to myself and in my world, you know, and take their spirits, whatever that is, and bring it with you.
Take it with
What else
you.
is there, Jill? What else is there?
I know, because as you said right in the beginning, Anne, life goes on, nothing stops. You know, sometimes you're like,
Brutal.
you know, when people die and then you're like, what? You know, I think it was yesterday actually, I was making dinner and I said to my voice note to my sister, I'm like that. Sometimes I just think, I cannot believe you're not actually, I can't believe you're dead. Like, I actually can't believe you're dead. What? How did that happen? Like, I know how it happens, right? But I know how it's happened. Like, that I'm like, oh my God, you're actually not ever coming back. You're never coming back in this human form. And how did that actually happen? Like, we were looking at old messages that she'd sent us on Messenger, on Facebook and stuff, and we found lovely ones. And it was like ones my sister was sharing yesterday, and it was all about just like people. I'll share it with you actually. It's so lovely. It was about like people that come in and out of your life, and they're just like visitors, and actually how can you take them with you? Because eventually they leave, and then there'll be a time that you leave people that you love. So how can you really live and enjoy life? Because even when that person goes, you're still here. You have a life to live. And it's this thing, and we see a lot, particularly on social media and by the media, of always chasing a goal, always like future, or regretting the past. You know, it's like, actually, we need to get so good at being in this moment and really enjoying the life that we have, because one day, let's face it, everyone that you know and love has 100% chance of dying.
Yeah, and you know what you were saying there, and it was absolutely beautiful, but like also, you know, your mum saying, you know, people who come into your life and, you know, this, and we're talking about you know, grief obviously as in people passing away, but people of all kinds come into your life, I believe, for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Love it. Reason, season, lifetime.
And those, and they are losses, you know, like past relationships, you know, you know, and however that is a loss and a grief as well, because often you're not, if you're the person it's kind of happened to, if you like, for the good of you, by the way, you know, you're not in control of that, and that's a loss also. But again, there's lessons in all of that and who that person was, and again, the spirit that you were attracted to in them, or that friend or that boss or mentor or whoever. And it's like, again, it's bringing that goodness of, because the people come into, everybody's in your life for a reason. Make the reason, like something tangible, something that you can take with you in the future. So, you know, although it's that we're talking about grief as in the loss of,
No, there's different levels of
you know,
grief, you know.
that what you were saying
Huge.
completely applies to all of that, you know, the people who
Yeah.
come into your life, and that spirit that we're talking about, and, you know, taking parts of that also applies to anybody who comes in and moves back out of your life for whatever reason.
Yeah, what is this teaching me? A lot of
Yeah,
the time,
what's the
you know,
lesson?
it's not always easy when you're in it, and especially for people that, you know, aren't maybe as spiritual and open as you and I am. But I would honestly say to you, try it, because when we are closing off our minds, we are closing off opportunities, lessons, and different ways of being and learning through life. Because if we are not open, and you were talking there about relationships and friendships and all these things, honestly, if when we're so closed off, we never learn. And then that's when so many times you see people attracting the same toxic partner.
Yeah.
Why do I keep attracting men that hurt me, men that cheat, men that are abusive, narcissistic, all these things? Why does this keep happening to me? Because we all know that one person, right, that keeps happening to.
Some magnet.
We all know someone, you know, that always happens to her. You know, why does that always happen to her? Or it might be you, you're like, why does that always happen to me? But my friend, that never happens to her. And honestly, we have lessons to learn in this lifetime. I truly believe it. And karma is a thing. I've got my karma incense right here. Karma is a thing. And people think, oh, karma's a bitch. It's just if you're a bad person, you get karma. It's not. Like, again, going back to like soul contracts and things that happen, we will keep learning the lesson. And as I've been on my 5-year journey, I have definitely repeated patterns, and I didn't realize were even there until I started to do the work. And then I did a lot of ancestral work, really went back generations and realized there was a real pattern with the women in my generation. And thank God I did, Anne, because it's really changing the trajectory of my life by me doing the work. Not only my life, the generations that come after me. So whilst things are painful, I would encourage you to open yourself up to say, is there something in me that I need to learn here? How am I being? How am I showing up in life? And what do I want? What do I really want for my life? How do I want to feel? And am I giving that to myself, first of all? Or am I expecting someone else to come in and fix me or to complete me and all of these things? Just be open to that, because a lot of the time we expect someone else to fix us, and no one and nothing outside of you can do that. That is entirely up to you to get curious, to open up, to do the work. But it can change. Your life can change. Sometimes people say, oh, that's just my life, that's my personality, that's the way I am, right? You're smiling, right? Agree?
You know, and there are, like, you know, pieces of you that belong to you. Like, I get all that, but man, there's a different way of doing everything. And, you know, and grief is such a learning process as well. And it's like, and those programs show up in grief also, like, hugely. And it's a space that you've never been in before, and all of a sudden you've got this belief that's rattling around in your mind, and you're like, why are you here? Like, that's not what
I dealt with you. I sorted you out. Why are you back?
Yeah. And, you know, and all the things that, you know, I don't do in my personal life or business and stuff. It's like comparing yourself to others, like the comparison killer, more dreams than anything else. You know, it's like all of these things that we say, and it's like, yet I find myself in the space of grief 100% comparing myself
totally
to other people, and not feeling good enough or worthy of my grief and stuff, you know, survivor's guilt, that all that sorts of things. And it's like,
that's a thing.
Hell, what? This isn't what you believe now, Anne. But like, in that space of grief, it was right there. Absolutely.
It is so real, like so many things you've said there. And I think what we don't hear people talking about in grief is that journey that you go on of feeling like you shouldn't be happy again, or not too happy. You shouldn't have wealth. when someone's so unhappy. You shouldn't, that's survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
That's a thing. And for anyone listening, just open that up. Are you keeping yourself small because you feel you don't deserve to be fully in your entire power and happy and receiving? Because we know it's an energy, right? But actually we self-sabotage when we get to the root of it. It's like, I can't really be fully happy because there's so many people that this is hurting, you know.
Yeah.
And so if I'm out there looking happy, people are going to judge me. Plus I shouldn't be that happy. It's not fair. Such a thing.
Yeah. And that's also, people might not recognize that that's what's going on in them, because they know that that's not right. Like, they know that of course they should be happy, and the person who's passive want them to be happy and stuff, but it's having and giving yourself the space and having the presence of mind to go, well, actually, if I really didn't believe that and I really should be happy and stuff, what would I be doing differently right now? You know, what would I be saying differently? What conversations would I be having if I didn't believe that, really? And then it's like, oh, fuck, it's there. It is there. You know, and like I shared with you the other week, and there's something hugely powerful in saying the words, especially for me. And let's listen to this. She'll know as well, because as soon as I say what's going on, it completely breaks the energy in it down into chunks, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's all this of it. And I shared with you the other week that on Sophie's funeral day, I said to my dad, and thankfully I was crying and he's deaf, so he never heard me. And I said, it should be me. It should be me. And I truly believed that. And I believed all that time that it would have been easier, better, all round if I could have just swapped places with Sophie. It would have been easier and better if it was me instead of our 16-year-old beautiful spirit and all the rest of it. So there's that thought process, like, I'm not worthy of still being here. Should have been me. Like, and that was that belief that has like followed me through all of this time, you know. And it's like, no, and just saying those words. So it's like, it's giving yourself permission to just talk about it. And that's why we're having these conversations. That's why you've built this amazing series for the podcast, is like to give people permission to think differently, to get quiet and go, okay, if I didn't really believe that, what would I be doing different right now? And like, just have the conversation, say those words out loud, process them. Don't do this by yourself either. Like, just because the more you sit inwardly with those beliefs and those thoughts and that chatter and that chimp running away in the back of your mind, like, you know, it just builds and manifests, and
dark.
all of a sudden life is different and you don't know how it happened.
Yeah, because when we're in that darker space and we're feeling those emotions and we're keeping it in and we're not speaking our truth and we're not sharing our stories and how we're actually feeling, that's when we seem to attract and manifest more shit. Because we know that, you know, like attracts like, crap attracts crap.
Yeah. And the lesson will keep turning up.
It keeps turning up. It's like, well, actually, where did you believe? Where did that come from, that you're not worthy? And, you know, you and I talked that out. And I remember you sharing that. And it was like, wow, it was a real moment of, shit, that's what's holding me back. You know, or
the last thing I said, spoke about as well. For an hour, and it was the last thing I said.
It was. But it's actually, you know, but grief does this to people, you know. And similar when I was in Bali and I was really in my deepest, darkest sort of space with the grief, everything just went on its head. It was just up in the air, and I'm like, who am I? What am I doing? You know, shame comes, all of everything just comes, like, you're this, you're that. It's like, oh my God, I'm meeting every dark part of myself. And if we don't have support around us, And I mean, there might be some people going, well, I don't have anyone. Come and speak to us. You know, there are communities, there are people, but you need to understand that you don't deserve to feel shit all the time. That person is gone. That person is no longer here in the physical, but you're here. You are here and you are worthy of living a happy life. It's not your turn to leave yet. Your time will come when your time will come. But until then, you know, live. And those people that, you know, have passed, or maybe not even passed, and, you know, they've maybe left your life. If it's someone that's left your life through a separation and you feel like you have regret, and that's a big thing for people, that's someone who's passed and someone who hasn't passed, they have regrets. Understand that these people were maybe only ever supposed to be in your life for that short period of time, that fleeting moment, or that year or 6 months or whenever. What did they teach you in that time, and how can you move through your life now with those lessons and start to learn and start to move in another direction of, okay, now what did I learn from that? And if it's death, how can you take them with you? How can you tell their story and keep it going and connect with them if that's what you want to do? And some of you might not want to, and that's okay, but live, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, Anne, this is just such a beautiful conversation. And before we wrap up, I really want to talk about what your soul, like, I know it's your soul mission. I really know deeply why you're here. I want you to, as you've learned through Sophie and David's passing, and you do a lot of work on yourself, like you do so much work on yourself. What do you believe when you tune in? Like, why do you believe you're here? What do you believe your own soul mission is?
So thank you for that, by the way. I have always believed that there was something for me, something else, always something else. If you ever talk to my dad, he'll testify to that. There's just never at peace, you know, and it was in here, never at peace in here. Like, there was always something for me. And it's kind of like being on a fair journey of that. And then I think I really got clear at the retreat in March. And, you know, looking at the devastation that has been those two incidents, and I think especially losing David, it was like, there has to be something. There has to be something to come from this. And then it's like, yeah, of course there is. This is your path. Like, and I said in a post on my socials not long ago, you know, if somebody had said, you know, you're going to go through so much loss and hurt and devastation that you're going to make that your life mission, I'd be like, well, I hope not. Like, no thanks. I'm just going to like toddle off and be a nurse or make pizzas or all the other things I've done, you know. And it's like, no thanks. But actually, that's exactly what's happened. And like I briefly mentioned earlier, like the sparks of light and inspiration that can come from those moments, from those parents, my brother and my sister-in-law, watching them, like, I can do it again. Like, what? Doing it the first time, like, you know, it's just inspired the shit out of me. And they don't realize, like, how incredible they are, you know. And, you know, my mum and dad as grandparents, I can't even imagine. I have another brother as well, shout out to Scott. You know, and like watching the family go through that, but like the strength, the resilience, just all of that, it's like I have to do something with that. That wasn't there for a reason. That wasn't there just for coincidence, for, you know, because I'm sure like every family dealing with that would be entirely different, you know. Yeah. And my dad to walk to the end of the drive and talk to Sky News, to politely in his own way to tell them to off. There's nothing to see here. There's nobody to talk to here. Go away. You know, like watching him as a grandparent 2 days after losing his granddaughter. It's like there has to be, and that's what it is. That's what the has to be is. And like I said, I got really clear in the retreat, like that's it, like the support and the navigation for people through this journey. Because it's not a process. I don't care what you say. Those steps that are published all over the place and written about today.
Pardon the pun.
Pardon the pun. It's a load of crap. Yes, you go through all of those emotions, but they're not in order.
No.
There's not a process. I'm a process girl. I live by process at work. Like this is not somebody else's written, defined process. And it's helping people navigate that. Like you're gonna get it's like flipping Scottish weather. You're gonna get everything all in one day.
You do.
You're gonna be wetting yourself laughing about what they said, or like I remember my mum tripped over one of Sophie's trainers sitting in the porch, and she turned around and swore at it, and it was like we just wet ourselves because it's funny. But she spoke to her, even though it was her shoe, and it's then you can just be in this space where you're just breaking. Will anything ever be normal again? Will anything ever feel again? And it's that's where I need to be. It's where I want to be, is like helping people navigate this. And it's still a journey for me, still a journey for you. There's still things that come up all the time and you're like, whoa.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so early for me and I'm doing this and people say, yo, you're doing it so soon. I'm like, do you know why? Because we often hear of people way after it that aren't navigating, or people that read books, write books and stuff. I'm like, when you're in it, you want to know someone that's been in it or still in it, like not just saying, here's what you should use, your 6-step process to grief. You're like, no, actually, I want someone to say, God, I wanted to fucking die, by the way. I was like, I couldn't get up off the floor. I was upset. I want to see those people because I'm not saying I want everyone to feel like shit, but I want the real, like, or I want someone to say, I did that. And then I went out and had a party with my friends on the same day. Because do you know what? That is it. That's it. It's like it changes you. It changes you. But actually, your capacity, like it doesn't, people go, it gets easier. It only gets easier because your capacity, if you allow it, expands so that you have more space to cope with it.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And you talked there, Anne, about community. It's important that you talked about the retreat, and we shared a really special space on that retreat. And I remember looking in your eyes and I'm like, you're so much more than you even know. Like, and you knew it, right? But your humanness goes, no, you're not. Everyone can relate to that. You're like, people tell me I'm really great, but I'm not. I'm a little fucking arsehole. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I do. But actually, when someone looks in your eyes, Anne, and goes, like, I see it in you, and I'm like, you are here for this. Like, something has to come out of that. I know with every fiber in my being that you are here to help people in this space. This conversation that I've just had with you, and for anyone listening, oh my God, it's just organic, it's real, and you're here for this.
Yeah.
There's so many people that need you to be that light and to support them in this space.
Yeah.
And give them hope. Give them hope.
And you want to connect with people whose lights have went out. And they've turned them back on again.
Yeah. And they're relatable. It's
and
like
I want to hear from the people who have sat in the back office of their work and done deals with the devil in their head.
Yeah.
Like that, like doing that and feeling that process, and like this word navigation, and it's like I always see this compass, like when you visualize your soul, like it's almost like a compass thing for me, and that navigation is like huge, and that's exactly what it is like just drawing the path, like, but it's your path, whatever you're feeling or thinking or going through, like that's I want to connect with the people that are doing those deals with the devil and are just so uncertain.
Oh, yeah, uncertain for sure, but also just know that there is a life for you that is happy and joyful and worthy of receiving love, connection, intimacy, more of everything. It is available to you, and you are worthy. And when you speak to someone like Anne, or you want to, you know, come into this space and communicate with us, like we will show you that. We show you that you are worthy of all of that, in spite of everything that's happened and what you may believe society tells you, or your conditions or your programs have been around grief. You can live again, and you can take that person with you and all of the lessons and all of the learnings, and be happy again.
Yeah.
Oh, and how can people get in touch with you?
Oh goodness. Social media is probably where everybody is. I can also leave my email with you. Like, if
I'll drop your email. I will drop your
messages,
Instagram, all of it. I'm going to drop it in the show notes. And if you've enjoyed this lesson, or you felt something from this lesson, please message myself and Anne. Because, you know, we put these things out there and we do get some messages, but if it touched you in any way, message and let us know, because it means the world, right? When, you know, when we're talking about this stuff, if you feel it, reach out. That's sometimes your first step. Just to say, by the way, I got something from that, thank you. That's your first step. And, you know, just give yourself a pat on the back for even just making that step. Sometimes we don't, but actually maybe that's your first step to say, oh Jesus, when you said this, I got that. We're so open to receiving anything, aren't we, Anne? Any messages from people?
Absolutely. Any question, any comment, just, you know, anything. It's so good to connect with people in this. The conversations need to happen, but it takes somebody to start the conversation. And, you know, that's what you're doing in this space as well, is like starting that conversation. So, you know, start your conversation now. Take this as your sign that this is the time for your conversation to happen now. And I'm telling you something, you'll never tell me anything that will shock you.
Yeah.
It'll shock me, you know. It's like, and you'll be like, yep.
Heard it, thought it, felt it.
Yeah, and that's not to take away from anybody else's experience and stuff, but like, just be reassured that you're not alone. It's your conversation. Start your conversation now. That's the line of the podcast, the episode. Start your conversation now. I love it, Anne. Anne, thank you so much. Love you too. Thank you for having me.